Well, hello and welcome. Welcome back to Nitrogen Bootcamp Day 2 here. Super excited to be here with all of you. Just a brief introduction. My name is Ian, part of the coaching team here at Nitrogen, and joining me today is Stephanie. Stephanie, how you doing today?
Hello, Ian. I'm doing well. Excited to be here again with everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah. Today we are diving into some of the most powerful parts of the Nitrogen platform Research Center. This session is all about leveling up your research game, learning how to connect with those analytical and data driven clients, the ones who really want to see the math before they trust the message.
Absolutely. And so we're titling today's session Tackling the Engineer. So, through a little bit of storytelling, we'll kind of paint the picture and walk you through how an advisor can use Research Center to turn raw data into compelling, client friendly, confidence building conversations. So, from AI discovery to multi-view to sandbox to reports. You'll see how each tool plays a role in winning over even the most analytical clients and prospects.
That's absolutely right. So by the end of the session, you'll know how to research, how to build, how to present smarter proposals and models, the kind that really make clients say, "Yeah, now that makes sense," right? So whether you're prospecting, refining your models, or preparing for your next big meeting, today's session will show you how to turn nitrogen's precision into persuasion. But before we get into all of the content for today, just a few housekeeping items. You may have noticed the lines are muted when you hop into the session. That is just so that we can focus on the topics at hand. But that said, we'd love to interact with you guys. So if you have questions, definitely drop them in the Q&A box in your Zoom window. And if you want to leave us a comment, feel free to do that inside the chat there. And then just to let you guys know, today is not so much about the individual points and clicks. We're going to be covering use cases. We're going to be covering a general story here, how to use these tools together. So if you're looking for the step-by-step guides, you can absolutely take a look inside our resource center for some guides there. So if you go into your Zoom window, you'll see that resource button there. And then also we'll show you in a minute here inside Nitrogen where you can access more of that learning there. And then in terms of today's roadmap, what we're going to be talking about, Stephanie kind of mentioned it already, but we're going to be doing some analytics to win over clients. So starting with research in AI discovery, then we'll move into things like stats, building out proposals and showing comparisons between a proposal and a portfolio, and then ultimately documenting that fiduciary care with some pro tips sort of baked into all of that. And of course, we'll be rounding out the session today with some Q&A. So again, if you have questions, please drop them in that Q&A box so that we can field them for you. Okay, so let's get started here. Let's set the stage for who we're talking about. Again, today is all going to be about Sarah and her prospect. We'll introduce the prospect in a moment here, but Sarah is a financial advisor. She is growing her practice and she is using nitrogen to do so. Now, she's going to be meeting with a prospect, Mark, soon here. We'll talk about specifics in a moment, but Mark, he's a pretty analytical guy. He is an engineer. He likes to see the math and really understand what is going on, peeking under the hood and how those analytics make sense. So today we're going to be tackling this engineer here, right? We're going to be using the tools inside Nitrogen to make sense to this prospect specifically and really sell him on Sarah's services. So we'll start there. And to get started into that, we're going to talk about some research tools. And Stephanie, I'll pass it over to you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Ian. So, yeah, once you're signed in, we'll kind of take you down this path. So, our prospect Mark here, he completed that lead generation questionnaire from Sarah's social media, a recent social media post. So, Sarah has his profile now in Nitrogen. And so we'll navigate there and pull that up from the homepage so she knows his risk number. He wants to be around a risk 73, but she doesn't yet know much about his current portfolio. So she's actually going to start in AI discovery. So at the very top of Nitrogen with Research Center, you'll see this discovery tab. So Sarah starts here because she wants to make sort of a short list of, hey, I know he's sort of analytically minded. He's got that higher risk number, 73. So I want to create like a short list that she can have prepped, ready to go for when she meets with him. So with AI discovery here, Sarah can come in and type in any sort of descriptor or phrase, um, or any sort of sort of components for which she wants to search specific securities. There you go. So let's say Sarah's looking for ETFs with a low expense ratio, and she wants it to be in the 70s. Um, Risk number between 70 and 75, because that's going to be close to what Mark, our engineer, really liked. So she types that in, she comes back over 300 results. So while we have narrowed it down, there's still a lot to sift through. So maybe she wants to narrow it down even further. She can refine her search up here at the top, and we see the filters that Discovery has populated for Sarah here. So then she can scroll left and right. Maybe there's other things like expenses or size and style that she wants to narrow down her discovery search with. She can see all of these securities that match the given filters so far. And then if she wants to take a little bit deeper, she can go and click on a specific security here. And we'll highlight as well, when you're using Discovery, you can favorite security. So Sarah wanted to create that sort of short list of securities she could have prepped and ready to go to talk about with Mark. Um, so we favorited this one at the top of the list. And excuse me, that will be available in the filters on the left-hand side. Sarah could pull up just her favorites. So if she wanted to highlight those, we could turn on those favorites, and that would pull that to the top of her list. So we have discovery here. Again, um, just like Sarah, you can come in and search for pretty much any type of security. Right now, the database does support stocks, mutual funds, ETFs, and SMAs. So lots of options. If you're curious what filters you can search through, just open up this tab that I highlighted a minute ago, and you can scroll through and see which filters are available to sort through or sort by. So we have those. And then, of course, if you wanted to dive deeper, like maybe Sarah wants to dig into some of these securities, we can click on the security name. It's going to open up security stats. And then that way, Sarah could really vet, like, which ones do I want to favorite? Which ones do I want to make note of to be able to talk with my client about? So whether it's kind of creating a short list, or if you manage models and you want to craft, really strong model portfolios with strong underlying securities, you can come in to Discovery and search for those top pieces. So, Ian, anything that you would add here on Discovery before we take us into our next section?
No, I think that was great. So Sarah can start in here and really just hone in and kind of leaning into that curiosity and just making sure that she's finding securities, investments that already align with that risk number. Now, of course, she doesn't actually have Mark's investments yet. So this is sort of initial prep. This is just sort of priming the engine so that we know, or that she has a short list that she can fall back onto once she gets those holdings from Mark and she has a better idea of what his investments look like. So I think that was really great. Thank you, Stephanie, for that. But I really want to move into the next section here. So turning this actual analysis into persuasion, right? So at this point, let's talk about what Sarah can do once she gets those investments from Mark. She gets that model that Mark has built for himself, being that analytical person. He has something that he's passing over to her in the form of a spreadsheet. So now At this point, Sarah has that spreadsheet in hand. She can come into nitrogen and enter it into his current portfolio. That way, she can see exactly what she's working with here. So, let's walk through that really quickly. So, we'll enter this current portfolio, click into fund stocks and other. And this is a really, really great use case for our AI statement capture tool. You can come in, drag and drop that either CSV, XLSX file, or even a PDF here. So depending on what Mark or your prospects or clients provide, you can just drag and drop. The AI tool is going to read, parse out that data for you, create the account or accounts, and then apply the overall analysis to the underlying holdings here. So while that's loading, the cool thing about this is, well, it actually went very quickly, but really quickly, we can navigate while that is loading if we need to. And I'm actually going to push us on over into the proposal here really quick. So we've got that loading in here. The portfolio is being built. Now let's talk about the proposal side of things. So Sarah she has a better understanding of the kind of securities that she wants to work with here and provide um, for this proposal here to Mark. So let's talk about how she can actually enter these very quickly into a proposal to then compare to that portfolio that Mark has passed over. So we can come in here, create a draft proposal. From there, what we're going to do is actually take a model. So we'll click into fund stocks and other, and then we'll select copy a model. Now, this model Sarah has generated beforehand using discovery, using that research on the back end. She has generally a good idea of where she would like to place Mark based on his risk tolerance here. So we can come into models, click into Mark's model there that we've built, and then enter his total value, which I think was around 2 million there. Perfect. So from there, let's add model as holding, and that's going to create an account with that model as a sleeve inside the proposal here. So all that work entering the portfolio and creating the proposal is done there, as you guys can see, within 2 to 3 minutes. Very quick, very easy, and we have everything ready for us to go now. So from here, we want to create that recommendation. We want to turn that analysis into persuasion, right? So let's move into back over into the portfolio really quick, Stephanie, so we can take a look at the portfolio itself, the numbers that ran there. So we can see Mark is sitting at about a risk number 70 with his portfolio that he sent over. He wants to be generally around that 73. That's what he told us with that risk questionnaire. Now, he's not necessarily out of alignment here, right? So this can be a little bit of a tough sell. You're not just leaning on that misalignment piece to say, hey, look, I can get you aligned into a better risk number here. We need to lean more on the actual analytics to show that we can create something that's better, that outperforms his portfolio, that's more efficient, and keeps him in that same range of risk number. So wanted to call out those pieces really quick at a high level here. Again, risk number 70, if we scroll down to uh, the analytics on the right-hand side here, we'll see a GPA of 3.7. So we know what we're working with now. We've seen these underlying holdings. Now we need to actually compare the two. And one of the best ways to do that is inside stats. So with Research Center, you have access to a ton of powerful analytics inside stats, and you can access that in the subheader here, just below the portfolio or proposal. So we'll click into that, and then we'll take a look at these portfolios side by side. So here, whether you access it in stats or within the portfolio, you can then navigate through these analytics to see specifically for each one of these portfolios or proposals how we're looking. So inside stats, you're going to have things like just a brief summary at the top, things like the 95% historical range, trailing returns all the way up to 10 years there, and some quick stats like that GPA and portfolio costs, and then a whole lot of other things in here. I'm not going to belabor each one of these necessarily, but I want to point out some really important ones. So, model performance, great place to come in and make comparisons. So, you can come here and add a benchmark or add even that proposal or model that you're comparing against to show exactly how they've performed in the past and compare them side by side. So if we come in here, add that proposal really quickly, and then close that sidebar, we'll see now the graph has populated with both that proposed and that current portfolio here side by side. Now, if we scroll down a little bit more, we'll see some more widgets here to talk about. Another good one here is diversification. So I don't know if any of you noticed, but the initial portfolio that Mark passed over, not necessarily too diverse. There's some diversification here, but there's a whole lot of green, meaning that a lot of these portfolios are, or a lot of these underlying holdings are heavily correlated here. Things like S&P, the BRKB. So there's uh, a lot of correlated holdings here, not so much diversification, but this is a really cool place to show that. And a way that you can do that here is by looking at the diversified risk part, which is essentially saying, okay, if we were to look at this portfolio in a vacuum and not take diversification into account, you would actually be sitting at a 77. But because we do take that into account, we have that 7 point reduction. So, cool place to visually show, are we diversified? Are we not? How does that diversification play into the overall risk? Okay, moving on down, just a few more things I want to call out here. The next thing, obviously, asset classes in here. We have it in the portfolio, but here it's a little bit of a heavier breakdown. So definitely check that out. And then the next guy here, Stephanie, I'll scroll on past, is stock intersection. So this is a really great place to see what is the overall equity exposure in terms of specific equities across the entire portfolio. So we can see things like maybe I want to be heavily invested in Nvidia, or I want some sort of exposure in Nvidia. I might not realize that I actually am holding some of that by way of SPY or whatever fund I have inside my portfolio. So stock intersection is, again, both a visual way and a analytical way to tell that story. So a lot of pieces in here, and then just really quickly at the bottom, you'll see stuff like regional exposure, size and style, risk and reward, all very visual and analytical pieces that you can use to tell this story. But the biggest thing in here, I think that I really want to focus on is multi-view. So if you come up to the top here, you'll see that multi-view option. This allows you to maintain all of those great analytics while incorporating other benchmarks or comparisons side by side. So here we can come in, add a comparison, and if we wanted to, well, Stephanie's way ahead of us. She already added that proposed portfolio here. So now we're comparing Mark's current versus that proposed portfolio, and we can quickly see side by side with a benchmark in the mix there if we want, how these two compare. So we can see Sarah's recommendation here. She has a higher GPA, slightly, but higher. So we are getting a little bit more efficient here. We have a little bit more on the top end, a little bit less on the downside there. And then we can review things like net expense ratio. Are we maintaining that very low expense ratio that Mark wants to have there at 0.07%? Yes, we're doing that. And annual dividend yield, we are increasing that here. We're moving away from basically a 90 or 95.5 portfolio with so much heavily invested in stocks and getting some exposure more into bonds on this side. So, really crisp and clean way to show, okay, how is my recommendation better, all in one screen here. So, now at this point, Sarah has shown Mark that her recommendation is better. And it is one of those scenarios again where Mark's risk number really wasn't that far out of alignment, but she's still able to show some improvements here. Now, I want to keep us on track. That was a lot to cover, but at this point, again, she hasn't met with Mark. She's doing her research here. She's now prepared to present this to Mark. If for whatever reason she wanted to do some more tinkering, she could come into the sandbox here on the right hand side on that panel there and click open that portfolio sandbox. So maybe she had that proposal that prepared, or maybe she's in Mark's account and really just wants to make a few changes to show how that will impact the overall analytics. She could come into the sandbox and make those changes without actually implementing them into the portfolio. So here, a really good tool, sort of a safe space to play around and change investments. So for example, Stephanie, let's just remove BRKB entirely and see how that's going to impact the overall portfolio. We can say preview changes in stats, and then you'll notice the stats will show as modified in the top left under the portfolio name here, showing you, okay, this is just a snapshot of how things will change if you were to remove BRKB. But you can go in there, change any of those holdings, add new accounts, remove accounts, and just have a safe space to play with these holdings and see how they will change without actually implementing. But if, for example, you're like, hey, this is actually pretty cool. I think this is something that I want. Maybe Sarah wants to move forward with something that she's created here in Sandbox. You can create a proposal directly from within the Sandbox there. Okay, so that is how Sarah can experiment behind the scenes, testing allocations, tweaking assumptions, and just testing those results. Now, she's ready for that meeting, and she doesn't have to play the guessing game. She just demonstrates what she knows to be true. The numbers look good and they make sense. So now, at this point, she's met with Mark. She's basically won Mark over, and now we want to move into documenting that fiduciary care and building that trust. So Stephanie, for that, I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, amazing. Thanks, Ian. So yeah, Sarah's put together her recommendations. She's ready to go. Let me take us back to our profile over here. So she wants to have something to present, maybe a physical deliverable. So every profile in Nitrogen has this create report button. So with Research Center, even with our legacy reports, you can come in and print under portfolio reports. You'll likely see a stats overview and stats comparison. So those are specific to Research Center. But where I'm going to take us right now is Reports Builder. So if you click on Create Report in your own account and you see Reports Builder, or if you see this tab up at the very top, we can navigate there, and this will let us, just like Sarah, come in and customize a report. Maybe you have reports specific for prospects. Maybe you have a report template specific, excuse me, for your existing clients. So unique to Research Center, in Reports Builder, you'll see Portfolio Stats Overview and Stats Multiview. So let's say this Stats Multiview, Sarah really liked that side-by-side comparison. So we have our client here, Mark, we have his current portfolio, the benchmark, and I'm going to slide down here on the right-hand side. This is the client-specific information. Just going to add his proposal really quickly. So we've added those in. And then we see sort of our preview in the middle here of the pieces of the report that would be included. So we're going to have that stats multi-view page that's going to give us that really nice side by side. And then if we wanted to add other elements on the far left-hand side, Sarah could come in and customize this even further. So maybe specific to Research Center, she wanted to go a little bit more into, size and style, sector breakdowns, risk and reward, any of those pieces that we saw within stats itself. If she wanted to include that, maybe we want a page on diversification and stock intersection. So we add those in. Those were really good talking points with our client, with our prospect. Excuse me. And so we have those here, and we can drag and drop them, put them in any particular order that we want. Maybe we want stock intersection first. And so we have that ready to go. And then we have two paths from here. We can save this template if you want to be able to reuse this again with other prospects. Sarah could save this, or you can click generate report and it'll create the PDF for you. I will mention with Reports Builder and with stats, there's almost always going to be this benchmark present. So you do have to pick a benchmark. You can't take out the benchmark. um, but we give you lots of options. If you wanted to change this, you could choose another blended benchmark, like our default is 60/40. You can change that to something else. You can pick a market index, even some of your models or an individual security. So the benchmarks are always there, but use those, modify those as needed. So let's say Sarah here, the client's not investing anywhere near a 60/40. So we're going to go through and pick something that's a little bit more applicable to Mark. So maybe a 95/5. So we've updated that benchmark there, and then we could generate the report. So the great thing is, Sarah captured Mark's attention with the side by side comparisons in multi-view, with that detail, being able to drill down into specific analytics. And then she can sort of wrap that all up with some really nice documentation. And that way, for her own audit needs, compliant needs, anything like that, she has those saved and ready to go. And then she can create these, excuse me, for deliverables for her prospects. Ian, anything that you would add on that?
No, I think that was great. Reporting pretty straightforward, but at this point, Sarah can decide how she also wants to send the report. So when you go and generate the report, it will give you a few options. You can download the PDF, you can print it off to deliver in person, or you could even email it directly from within Nitrogen. So there, we do give you some options there. So whatever Sarah decides here, again, she can send that off to Mark pretty easily, and then the email to client option up here is a newer one. So if that's something you guys want to use or experiment with, definitely check that out. But I think that was fantastic, and it kind of wraps us up on that whole prospect life cycle there. So let's move into now some just final takeaways. So Stephanie, if you don't mind pulling up our slides one more time for us before we get into Q&A and all the good stuff there, I just want to mention some sort of final takeaways here. So essentially, the formula for winning clients with Research Center. Of course, leading with curiosity, using discovery to explore those possibilities is always a great place to start. And then moving into validating that data, comparing, visualizing, and explaining inside stats, and especially that multi view tool, is a really great way to tell that story. And of course, reinforcing it with evidence. So, documenting all those insights inside Reports Builder, having a very fresh and clean, easy to read deliverable is super important. And then, I always like to call out the sandbox. I think being able to experiment really intelligently within those portfolios or those proposals and really refining your options behind the scenes is a cool option or a cool way to tell and build a better story there too. So before we move into Q&A, Stephanie, I'm going to pass it over to you just to cover a few help resources, and then we'll get to the questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Ian. So, yeah, we've listed some of the training resources here. So, as you're continuing your learning, whether you join us tomorrow for the next boot camp session or you're just kind of exploring on your own, we have that help center. I don't think we actually pointed it out while we were in the product, but it's in that lower right hand corner. Anytime that you're signed in, just click on that help center. Tons of resources there. You can access our quick video guides on YouTube. You can email our customer support team, walk through like guides and help center articles. Tons and tons of information there. So definitely use those as needed. And then if you want to continue your training and learning in person with us, we invite you to come join us at our Fearless Investing Summit. So that's happening in Denver next February. So just a few months away. You can use that code coaching VIP when you scan and visit our website to register. If you're interested in joining us, you can use that code for a discount, and we'd love to see you in person. Our whole coaching team is there to help with these sessions so you can dive deep into nitrogen knowledge in addition to lots of great industry knowledge and even more. So definitely check that out if you can join us in Denver. And so we'll share a quick poll as well for today's session specifically. So let us know what you thought of today, how we can improve. We always appreciate hearing your feedback, and we strive to make these sessions better and better each time. And then lastly, we are going to jump into Q&A. So like we mentioned, go into the bottom of your Zoom panel, Look for that Q&A box if you haven't already dropped a question in there. If any more have come to mind, jump in there, type out your questions, and then we will jump into Q&A and get those answered for you.